Tomorrow, as you may know, is Election Day in Texas, with a handful of significant measures on local ballots, as well as several amendments to the state's constitution. All Texans will vote on 17 proposed constitutional amendments, a majority of which address tax cuts for homeowners and businesses. Grayson County voters will decide the fate of the county's unincorporated 1.5% sales tax proposal to help fund emergency services in those areas. Now, only registered voters who live in unincorporated areas of Grayson County will be allowed to vote on that proposition. In Sherman, voters will decide between incumbent Clay Barnett and challenger Sandra Melton for City Council District 1, and Van Alstyne and Tom Bean voters will decide the fate of school bond proposals in their cities.